Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Think Tank. Each day we share the news in open dialogue and discuss how it might affect the business world. We speak with different leaders on crisis management and navigation, as well as experts in professional and personal self-betterment. It's meant to be a break. You should learn a little. We share good news, and we give everybody a few great ideas to start people moving forward. It's called the Think Tank. Today, we have a special guest, David Duncan, who will learn a little bit more about him in a minute. But I just wanted to just go around and say hi to everyone real quick. We've got Kimball Anderson there, a creative producer who helps brands and individuals present well and in focus and in tune on big stages and within the content they create. Robbie Sawyer with Thinkers Society, and he helps people get to their better ideas, whether it be at events or within your corporations. Michael Simpson, and I do not have his bio in front of me to tell you, he is Chief Technology Officer for a telemedicine company where they connect health professionals with individuals around the U.S. Close, Michael?
We'll go with that.
Okay, good. Good.
Michael, at this point,
it's different every time. So
I think it's shtick at this point, Michael. Right?
Yeah. I'm gonna go tell my boss that I got promoted to CTO.
And then there's Doug Carroll, advisor and coach to boards and executives, helping them in time of crisis and challenge, create a good strategy to move forward. And Cindy's joining us, and she spells her name Cindy. Thank you for joining us, Cindy. We've got 8 on YouTube. So we typically now like to jump in a little bit and talk about anything that's happening in the news. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share or add to our ongoing as far as what's happening with your business and as it relates to COVID? Anyone?
Actually, I did have one point. I had a need to set up a meeting with a CPA firm, and I reached out today and said, hey, by any chance next week, might that be an opportunity to meet? And he goes, absolutely. You know, as the restrictions are easing here in Texas, we're going to be back in, and we have small meeting rooms, I guess, you know, the 5 and under or whatever. So I scheduled an appointment just like the old days in an office tower next week. So I'm feeling pretty excited about that.
Yeah, we were just talking here in the studio. It's funny. They've opened up in Texas anyway. They've opened up some restaurants now that you can go in, but you have to be at distance. And they opened up a popular Mexican restaurant, I guess, up north. And people were waiting 4 hours to go sit on the patio to go have a margarita. That's the same margarita they would serve you in a basket to take home with you, but
But you know what? But somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I heard a neighbor saying over the weekend that is it possible that South Lake restaurants stayed open or have been able to stay open?
No,
that would be a case where a local authority said, we're not going to stop you, maybe. But it could be overridden, of course, by a state.
I mean, honestly, I couldn't imagine either.
On some individual case, but I live in Flower Mound, and my daughter's studio is right next to South Lake, and it's a ghost town. So, like everybody else.
You know, I'd like to give a political shout out to the country of North Korea because somehow it was announced today that they don't have a single case of COVID-19. So whatever they're doing there,
that's North or South Korea?
North Korea.
That's because they're all with their dictator.
No, I know. I'm just kidding. I just think it's absolutely
at the resort.
Hilarious.
At the resort.
Yeah. Who'd want to go there anyway? Who'd want to bring anything there?
Dennis Rodman.
I want to make sure one more thing before we get serious. I want to make sure everybody has pants on. Did you guys hear about the Good Morning America news guy that was broadcasting from his home on a story, and evidently did not check his camera angle? And when they went to him at his house, he's sitting there with his nice blazer, blue shirt, certainly what appears to be underwear, but he later through social media said no, they were shorts. It wasn't underwear. So
well, if it was Matt Lauer, I might believe it.
No, no.
Oh, that was tough.
That was,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Great, but tough.
Yeah. So anyway.
Okay, I'm wearing shorts, just but they're basketball shorts, so they go down to my knees.
I hear you.
All right. Well, let's not waste any more
Work.
time with news. We've got David here today, and I think we're going to talk about some fun things. And David, it's been interesting. We have done a session on how you manage yourself, and as a leader, what you should do for yourself before you can help anyone else.
That's right.
And then Dr. Paul has talked with us around those lines too, about what's the psychological effect with that. But I think the real interesting thing today is how you're going to tell us and share with us how we're going to apply that to a bunch of people, the people that you lead. So everyone, please welcome, let me get him on the screen here. Please welcome David Duncan, a psychologist, and he's currently positioned as vice president and executive consultant at Leadership Worth Following. This firm, otherwise known as LWF, is a leadership consulting company based in Irving, Texas. David and his LWF colleagues work closely with their clients, partners, to help them effectively assess, select, and develop high potential talent and high performing executive teams. So I'm not sure you'll find many of those here in our Zoom today, David, but thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, and I know I'm in good company, so I appreciate the opportunity to be with you all. I'm from Chicago. I moved to Dallas, and I've been catching myself saying y'all lately.
There you go.
Who are you all? And I just caught myself just now. I stopped myself just short of it, though. I swore to my wife and kids.
What part of Chicago?
Naperville, Illinois, just about 40 miles just west of the city.
I'm an Illinois boy.
Are you really?
Yeah.
There you go.
My brother lives in Elmhurst. My brother-in-law lives downtown. I had offices in Oak Brook and downtown, so I'm an Illinois boy.
I have friends in Elmhurst. I have friends in Oak Brook. I used to live downtown. I still have friends downtown. So yeah, if you're still here, we'd be hanging out maybe, right? That'd be fun.
Very good. So David, give us the high level of what you guys did day to day before all this kind of happened.
Sure.
In a nutshell, kind of what was your guys' forte and what does that mean?
Yeah, well, before the invisible terrorists sort of took hold, our business was one where we worked with our client partners to help them identify talent and develop them, right? And it was largely face-to-face. In fact, that was, probably not over 90% of our work was face-to-face or over the phone, coming to our Dallas offices. We sometimes travel there as well, and work with high-performance teams as well. So we did those things around the clock, sometimes even 7 days a week. And then COVID-19 took over, and things certainly went upside down from there, as it has with most companies, as you all know. And we've been through an exercise of adaptability ever since.
So it was that a lot of, you say in person, so it was a testing of specific groups and trying to figure out who would be best leader here. And then once it's figured out, start mentoring them and giving them the skills to do that. Is that kind of what it was?
That is correct. Certainly. Yeah. We have a pretty robust assessment process. It's a combination of psychometric tools, role play simulations. We even do 360 survey assessments to get all sorts of perspectives of the person's leadership profile. And then we give them that feedback, and we work them with them on development planning to help them go from point A to point B in their careers. So, yeah, and that was heavily face-to-face work, or at least in person. And now face-to-face has a whole new meaning now. This is face-to-face now, and
screen to screen.
Yeah, right. So our company has been forced to sort of to get up to speed with technology and embrace it, and now we still do client work, but as you know, it's all virtual and a little out of our comfort zone. We're not necessarily technical experts, but we're getting there, and we're finding that the client work that's face-to-face now still feels very much face-to-face. And
so how long did it take to kind of settle in that, hey, we better figure this out? And then did you guys put a company-wide plan together of you need to have a computer that does this and a camera and lighting, and this is how you should talk and do all that kind of stuff? Or is it just kind of organic?
Well, yes, a little bit of both. We're still trying to figure it out, to be honest with you.
Okay,
There's still some kinks we're trying to figure out. But, one of the first sort of action steps that we took was to develop our teams, their situations so they can work remotely, get them equipped with the technology, make sure their cameras are working and that they have printers and phones, just things like that, right? Things that you take for granted,
right,
but you don't always have a home office that's up to speed with your real office. And so
right,
getting the tools and equipment in order was important. Make sure it's bandwidth, right? Now with kids working from home with e-learning and other spouses working, they're all sharing, the internet and trying to troubleshoot glitches like that still happen these days, to be honest with you, was all part of the exercise here. And we're still working at it, but we're getting much better at it.
Anything that you've been doing during these transitional times that you go, man, this is actually pretty effective and it really works, that you might carry forward after we come out of this, whenever that is?
You bet. Yes. And it sort of speaks to this notion of technology. So face-to-face work is important for the kind of work that we do. We work very closely with people. They share their personal stories, right? We're psychologists first and foremost, and we're business consultants secondly. So you have very intimate conversations that under the ideal situation, you can meet face-to-face literally. We had some skepticism to see if that could be replicated, the intimacy and the effectiveness, to be honest with you, to do that virtually. And to our surprise, it's actually worked out even a little bit better. In fact, prior to this call, I had a one-on-one face-to-face meeting, and someone said that the conversation we just had was better than anything we've ever had before previously. And we've had more than a handful of one-on-one face-to-face in-person meetings. And it's the intimacy that I think it's created in a weird sort of ironic sort of way through the video camera. We're all in our home offices. We're all under this same situation. We all still feel kind of vulnerable. Opens itself up to more candor and authenticity in conversations. And there's just something about that connection that is just different, but every bit as powerful as if it was literally face to face.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what's evolved out of these things. And you're right. You seem to be, it's like you're just talking on the phone to someone. It's a little more casual, and with that, perhaps comes more information.
You bet.
And I've been amazed too to see the older generation all of a sudden pop on and no problem. And before they would have freaked out and said, "No, I can't." And
surprising themselves, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. I had a client conversation late last week, and Microsoft Teams was the software we were using, and he was reading his document. I said, "Why don't you share your screen?" And I had to walk him how to do that. It took maybe 10 seconds, and he just did it, and surprised and a little overwhelmed. But again, it was a powerful moment and a reminder that technology can do many, if not more, things than the Fred Flintstone era did, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Sam, I have a quick question. Do you find, it's interesting talking about the one-on-ones from a psychological standpoint. Do you think, I guess it's going to vary by individual, but there are times when, to your point a second ago, it might be actually more productive because somebody maybe feels less intimidated, if that's possible, because you're not you're face to face, obviously, but you're not.
There's a digital barrier.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a digital barrier, plus there's also an informality to it, right? When you meet face to face, you got to put your best clothes on, you come on in, and you bring, I guess, with you a mindset of formality, which is good in some respects, but sometimes it could be a hindrance to being authentic and real and candid. When we're sitting just in our button ups and we're not in ties, maybe wearing pants, who knows, right? Yeah. There's a sense of, what you see is what you get. There's a sense of freedom and comfort that comes with sort of being that way. And I think individual defense systems or thoughts about needing to be buttoned up goes by the wayside. So they're more candid, more expressive. I should do a study on that. I don't know if that needs to be tested, but that's sort of my theory. And this is why I think it lends itself to more powerful conversations.
We're going to stick with that. And now we're going to we're going to jump into the program for today, which I've been reading through, and it seems very dead on and interesting. I hope everyone gets the same out of that. But David's going to speak to us about what are some of the key essential things that you should be doing when you're trying to lead during these challenging times, and more importantly, remotely. I think there's some things that are carrying over, and as we just said, you kind of learn as you go. And so David's got 8 steps for us. So let's go ahead and start that up. David, maybe you perhaps tell us how you put this together, or how you and where we're going to go from here.
Sure. Well, a lot of it's a combination of just our professional experience, and we've all worked through crisis of 9/11, the 2007 through 9 economic crises, and we've developed a sort of list of best practices of how to lead through challenging times. And this is, the coronavirus seems to have its own animal, and there's an even greater sense of uncertainty and insecurity among people, at least in my experience, which is plays to all new challenges for leaders, and not only just for themselves personally, but for leading teams. And now that teams are more remote, that a couple more degrees of separation only heightens a lot of that anxiety, a lot of that insecurity, not knowing what the future is going to bring. It really is incumbent upon leaders to embrace this moment and bring out the best of leadership at the table. But there's no script to this. There isn't a recipe book of sort of what to do. But we at LWF have put sort of these 8 essentials for leading in times of crisis. In particular, it's leading remote teams. The first, number 1, is take care of yourself. If you think about, when you travel on an airplane and you listen to the flight attendants sort of give their safety scripts, and when they get to the point where they talk about if there's a sudden decrease in cabin pressure and the masks drop, if you're traveling with a small child, what are you supposed to do first? Anybody pay attention enough to sort of know what the instruction is? If you're traveling with a child and the masks have dropped, who gets the mask first, the child or yourself?
Put on your mask first and help others.
There you go. Yeah. So this is what, this sort of message is to take care of yourself first. If you're not taking care of yourself, if your cup isn't full, you're not going to be much support and help for others. And so taking care of yourself is just sort of mandatory. We're people and we're leaders. People get stressed out, and there are stressed out leaders. And so leaders who take care of that recognize that an abundance of stress can undermine themselves physically, emotionally, mentally, and their leadership. They recognize that and reprioritize that so they fill their cup. That's essential. So making sure you take 15-minute breaks a couple of times a day, right? Meditation, relaxation, time to step away and get away to sort of, so to speak, fill your cup. Get that oxygen mask on your face. Make sure that your gasoline tank is full and your cup is full. That's sort of mission critical. It may be sort of obvious to others, but I don't think that point can be reinforced enough. It's essential to make sure that you don't lead from an empty cup.
That's interesting. We've that was big with what Doug was sharing one day, and likewise with Dr. Polish. You first got to get right with yourself so that you can help others, and so that's what you're basically saying there, right?
Well, and you think about if you all have had leaders before, bosses before, who, even the best of times are stressed out. How does that make you feel? What does that do to you? Right. So leaders cast long shadows, as they say, right? So leaders have a lot of influence. And so if your cup's not full, if you're not managing your stress and anxiety, you're in no position to effectively lead and inspire your team. So take care of yourself, number 1. So number 2, it sort of goes to the point I just sort of teed up, is you got to set the right tone. Challenging times, unprecedented times, everyone is nervous, or at least they have some degree of uncertainty about what to expect and how things are going to be moving forward. And people are people, and they have emotions and feelings. And so the best leader is one who could reach out empathetically, who is not only a sort of a great sort of speaker who can give inspirational messages, but they're even better listeners, to hear out their employees and listen to their concerns and give liberty to ask sort of whatever questions that they need to ask and have answered in order to alleviate concerns, or wondering about what is the status for a company, what What's our next chapter going to look like? What's real? What do I need to be worried about? What do I don't need to be worried about? Set the tone, lead with empathy, but also lead with confidence, right? Things are tough. In some cases are desperate, but things aren't over, right? So leading with confidence, leading with optimism is also important. And above all, just simply be positive, right? I know that our leader at LWF is fantastic when it comes to positivity, always finding silver linings, always finding good things to talk about, reasons to be happy and inspired, making sure those messages are just as much heard as the ones that are obviously negative, right? We all understand, appreciate what the negative is, but there are positive things happening as well. So speaking with positivity and confidence and empathy to set the right tone, the right culture for the team is also critically important.
I think that's interesting because people aren't seeing you every day. And
Right.
those limited times, everyone's like, man, I hope I can get back to work and I hope everything's going to be the same. And so they need that confidence and looking in their leader's eyes and going, boy, we're set here. We're on the right path. And that's a big emotional boost, I think, for everybody.
It is. And sort of a secondary note to that too is being honest as well. And in fact, right before this call, I was again speaking with another client who wasn't necessarily confident that their leader was speaking the truth about the state of the business, right? And sort of distorting the metrics and the numbers, and had what seemingly was an irrational prediction of what the future is going to be. And nobody spoke up, nobody said anything. But then I had a coaching conversation with this person and felt very much that trust was undermined, right? And everybody can very plainly see that things are very, very, very bleak. And it's one thing to be positive, but being dishonest, right, or being misleading is a different thing. So while you're being positive, also be honest and transparent about, let's say, the state of the business or what our future might look like, or it's going to be different, right? Because if honesty engenders trust, and trust inspires followership, right? That's what you're ultimately looking for. You want people to continue to follow your lead and not lose them, or just sort of look at things with rose-colored glasses or paint a dishonest picture of the future. Most people can read right through that and you'll lose them right then and there.
That's a fine line too, I would imagine, being able to articulate the honesty of a situation in which is a bad situation, and try to articulate that in hopes that somebody will not take that as negative, which clearly it is negative or could be negative to them. And I don't think a ton of people are really good at that.
No, it's not. And that's a great point. That highlights what number 8 is going to sound like when I get to it. So, but I completely agree with your point.
Well, we'll jump to number 3.
Yeah, we'll go to number 3. So while working apart, we got to still stay connected, right? Particularly for extroverts like myself, right? I know that I'm going a little bananas and being, confined to my home, and you really can't go out much of anywhere other than grocery stores and whatever else, right? And so being connected is sort of a natural driver of mine. So when I'm disconnected, I get antsy really, really quickly. But even those who are not or more introverted and maybe would prefer to be working in isolation or just separate, still staying connected is a human need. It's not just an individual. It's a human need. We need to stay connected with people. And it's very easy to be disconnected or to get disconnected when we're miles apart. In my case, I'm 900 miles apart from most of my team, right? Talk about being disconnected. So staying connected is mission critical. And to do so by having regular meetings. So our team meets twice a week, whether we have something to talk about or nothing. We still have mandatory twice a week meetings. And then we also have sort of these sort of informal meetings that, still business related conversations, but, we don't use, we're not in the same office, so maybe we can just delay this conversation for later time. No, we still send a meeting invite and we have conversations, even though short, sweet, and simple, right? We still make sure that we do that. Video conferencing is amazing, as we just talked about before, or just picking up the phone, sending a chat, sending a text, or through the instant messengers. We've been doing that, and we're staying connected, and it feels almost like we're still working together in the same office.
So stay connected. That's a big deal. It's interesting, though, how much more work you find you can do when you're not bugged by everyone running around, but you still need to have these connection times. But
yeah, well, I guess it's a human need, right? Just to literally feel that you're part of a team, that you have the camaraderie, you have the connection. There's still the need to collaborate. Now, in our work, I mean, our company doesn't work well without collaboration, and so with the obstacle of geography and distance, in place right now, we need to work around that. So we're very, very, very deliberate and intentional about making sure that we're connecting formally as a team twice a week and informally many more times beyond that as well.
Number four,
create team support and engagement, right? So we all become sort of little mini therapists for one another, right? We mentioned a few minutes ago that, in our client work, we seem to be developing even more close, more intimate connections. The same is sort of happening with our team and teams that are sort of there for one another, just to bond, to connect. They used to be over the water cooler. We can have an informal conversation about the kids or whatever personal thing going on. Incorporating like a buddy system, where you have a buddy or two that is sort of just your confidant, some that you'll connect with as often as you want to, but it's a buddy system that says everybody has an opportunity to connect with somebody for support, like a little mini counseling session, who knows, but just to be there for one another, just to make sure that we all have in our cups full, that the connection thing is still working, and things that you don't feel maybe comfortable talking about in sort of big team settings, we can talk one-on-one with a colleague / confidant, your buddy, things like that. That's what something like that is very useful for that.
Yeah, what we've been doing at Therapy 2000 is we have been having like virtual happy hours.
Beautiful.
So we've been doing just Zoom calls much like what we do on Friday afternoons, right, Jen?
right.
Where the teams can just get together and share because we've gone from in-person visits to doing only telehealth. And our therapists, up to 5 weeks ago had never done telehealth before. So it's been just a great time of just kicking back and enjoying a cocktail, sharing what's going well, what's not going well, sharing strategies about what's working with different types of patients and stuff. And we're also leveraging our internal Facebook group for that as well.
Nice.
Yeah, we started a Facebook group late last year, not knowing what was coming for us this year, and we just kind of had that, the framework for that laid at the perfect time. It's funny. I've been joking around our office that employee engagement has never been higher, and all it took was a global pandemic.
Isn't that strange? I've heard, but again, a number of times people saying, it's almost like a blessing in disguise. This pandemic has wreaked havoc in so many ways, but it's really created opportunity and enhancements in so many unexpected ways, almost paradoxically or just ironic sort of ways, right? Where, through the distance, people have only become closer, so to speak, right?
It's true.
Client relationships have only become that much more intimate, right? It's as many negative things as you can talk about. Boy, there's just a whole host of positive things and affirming things that makes you feel good about what we do for a living and good about humanity.
It'll be interesting. I'd be curious as to yours and Dr. Paulus's views on this too, because I've been doing disaster recovery for 30 years. And you see, 9/11, hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever it is, you see the same cycle, right? You have this event, everybody pulls together. It's incredible, awe-inspiring, all those words, and it's all true. But then you gradually leach back into the everyday.
Yeah.
So the question that I find interesting is going to be, okay, so what's that timeline look like, in this case, and how's that going to impact the fall when coronavirus starts back up again? And what's it going to look like? Are we going to be as cooperative with each other, or is it going to be all, back to the quarantine fatigue a little bit? So I'd be curious to get your guys' impressions on it.
All right. Number 5 is communicate clearly and consistently.
Sure. Yeah. So For teams who are not used to working remotely, when they have, their workforce largely is at work, the rules of engagement when working remotely and the rules of how to sort of work effectively remotely are not written. So they need to be created. Accountabilities need to be derived, expectations sort of put into place. There's also new ways of doing things and when they're doing things, right? And, a lot of people have their kids at home. So it's maybe not that easy to, do your 8 a.m. meeting and also then cook your children breakfast or get their e-learning. Who knows, right? There's all sorts of, all bets are off now. Everything's sort of different. And so identifying sort of what's the realistic schedule for people, combined with the work expectations. Things still need to get done, but when and how things get done, that's very different. So the alignment of those goals, alignment of the approaches is very, very important. Individuals who are struggling with the technology, right? What are the plans when technology breaks down? What do we do? What's our plan B? We don't even have a technology officer, so how do we handle that? And who are important people to troubleshoot technical things, right? It's all about trying to decipher, the rules and the protocols, the processes for doing the work that we've been doing for years and years, but under completely different contexts and situations with all sorts of different obstacles and dynamics. Again, there's no rule book for this, but we're writing it now. But when you communicate those expectations, after sort of gaining the, an understanding and agreement about what those expectations are, that's really, really important. And the over-communicate thing is also important too. And sometimes people don't like it when you repeat yourself, but sometimes repeating yourself to reemphasize important points is very, very critical. So in our organization, whenever we have a meeting, a virtual meeting, we send out notes. We send out, this is what I learned about today's conversation. This is what I learned. These were my takeaways. We all send them out, right? Just to make sure they're all hearing the right things. And then somebody summarizes that and resends it back to us. Okay, these were the things we talked about. Sounds like everybody got that. This other person picked up this other thing. This is great. So here are the minutes of the hour-long meeting we just had. May seem like overkill, but when you're in video conferencing and you have a kid asking you a question while you're talking to your boss, things like that, information can get lost and mistranslated. So again, over-communication is another sort of part of this important action step as well.
That's interesting. Robbie takes all of our notes for the think tank. So Robbie will look for those notes.
Oh yeah, I'll fire those out as soon as we're done.
Let's go to step number 6, which is adapt your approach.
Yeah, that's really about adapting, the 90% of this point is about adapting your approach for communication, right? And mentioned before that, sometimes we text, sometimes we instant message, sometimes we have a virtual team meeting, video conference wise, pick up the phone. When you have a direct report, ask them what the preferred method of communication is, right? Maybe they'd rather have a phone conversation than face-to-face. Keeping in mind, sometimes face-to-face meetings are more important than having a phone conversation. But if it's just an informal check-in, if that person rather just picking up the phone and let's have a phone conference, then adapt your approach to do that. Not everything has to be a video conference, right? Although we're having fun with it, and I love it, and it works just fine. Not having to send out a formal invitation to be accepted and have the meeting, maybe just picking up the phone, right? Maybe pick the phone and calling somebody, especially if that's the preferred way of communicating, then do that. A coworker of mine loves texts. And so we will text, quite frequently, right? Can I pick up the phone? Probably have a quicker conversation? Absolutely. But she likes to text, so I adapt and adjust my approach to her preferred style, right? So being versatile, being adaptable to how you communicate with people is really important. And under this, so the second notion of adaptability, it may even need to be a separate bullet point, but I put it under adapting your approach because it has to do with leadership adaptability. And that is, especially as we're, as leaders, trying to figure out how to do this, how do we lead remote teams? We need to ask the question, are we doing it? Am I doing a good job? Am I leading you and this team correctly? We need that feedback. We need to know exactly what's working. So adapt your approach from, I'll give you feedback, to, can you give me feedback? How am I working for you? How is this working for all of us? Give me some feedback. I know that My leader.
How do you look for that? Do you look for that? Hey, send me an email after. What'd you think, or what can I do better? Or is it asking live and putting people somewhat on the spot?
I don't know if there's a right or wrong way of doing it, but the important thing is just to ask it. I know that whenever I have a meeting with my leader, and it's almost 99% of the time it's a video conference, he'll ask, what do you do for you and what can I do better? So, he asks, and it's almost just comes out as a natural way of ending conversation. I'm not even sure if he's even conscious he's asking that these days. Okay. But he always asks it, and I always give him an answer, which is usually you're doing terrifically, you're doing just fine. Well, sometimes I give him feedback, right? But I appreciate the opportunity to give him feedback.
Yeah, and David, don't you also?
Ways.
Yeah, I mean, it really should, and it really, honestly, should be part of that relationship culture. You know, from day one, just so that it's not so on the spot. It's like, you know, that culture should be, hey, listen, within reason, and obviously done politically in a politically correct, manner. But hey, you know, I want to know if you need something or if there's anything that we can do differently.
Yeah, and to your point, it's got to be genuine, right? And many people adopt the philosophy servant leadership, right? And there's a lot of principles of servant leadership I really, really believe in, right? But central to servant leadership is, what can I do to make you better? Right. And, asking that question, is right in line with that philosophy. And when you ask it genuinely, and more importantly, when you act on the feedback, right, that just makes it that much better and inspires that much more followership, in my opinion.
That last point is so critical, because at Apple, we instituted a program across retail called Fearless Feedback. So you had everybody from Ron Johnson and Tim Cook involved down to the hourly workers. And the differential was, what we found is that most people don't know how to deal with feedback in a professional setting. And so we had to spend a lot of time and energy teaching people and creating an environment that everybody felt safe, giving and getting feedback, even if sometimes the answer was, I understand, but I'm not going to change, and because everybody thought, if I hear feedback, I got to do something about it. Well, sometimes that's not true, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's the action that follows the feedback that creates the culture that sticks.
Correct.
So it's one of those things you got to balance the reality of, taking the feedback and doing the work. And it's really important, so I mean, Dave's right on everything he said, but in successful things that I've seen, it's around how do you deal with the actions that follow that feedback that really create the magic.
Yes.
Good. Number 7 is provide the right tools.
Yeah, and I've already touched upon a lot of that already when it sort of came to, how our own team sort of had to adapt and adjust to this. And that is, I'll just say it real quickly. Make sure you have the right equipment, tools, and resources to be able to work remotely, right? If you and if you don't have enough bandwidth, you gotta figure it out. I know that one of our executive leaders at our company had to put in it was an Eros mesh internet system in her home because there was just too many dead zones that they created, right? And it's upscaling the internet, and she simply could not do her job having calls and videos of being disconnected every 5 minutes, right? It was not a winning situation. So the investment in getting a better internet system going, getting software programs put in place, printers to print things out, whatever is sort of needed to get the job done remotely. Please empower your teams, invest in those resources. Yes, it's an expenditure, but it has to work, right?
And it's get the right tools and give them the basic knowledge and understanding of how to use it, so the tools aren't a part of it anymore. It's just an open channel to start speaking.
You got it. Yeah, right. Work out the kinks, right? And have support and systems in place to be able to work out those kinks. But when they're worked out, they're all set to go. Yeah, you got it. You got it.
All right. Well, let's
jump
to...
And then the last one is number 8. So seizing the opportunity. Yeah, seizing opportunities about finding silver linings, right? And I know it's a myth that the Chinese symbol for crises has opportunity, and that's since been proven or established as not true. But it's a cool story to tell. That in crises, there's typically an opportunity that's been exposed for you to be able to jump through, right? And for us at Leadership with Fun, the opportunity, as ever explained, is, wow, we can develop a whole practice of doing remote service delivery. We've never done that before. And by golly, it's working. And if it wasn't for this crisis, I promise you, we would not be doing remote services. We wouldn't do it. And maybe not for great reasons, but we wouldn't be doing it. But this has brought in versatility into our ability to deliver solutions for clients. For clients who don't want to come to Dallas, now we can deliver service in Timbuktu if we needed to, right? We have much more versatility. So building out new capacity because of this crisis to expand our business and make us that more attractive to current and future clients, that's the opportunity that we're seizing, right? Even at a personal level, a lot of people are bemoaning the fact that, they're maybe taking a cut in pay, and who knows what the future is going to be. There's an opportunity now to maybe get closer with your family. Now we're spending much more time with their families, and people who struggle with work-life balance before have now a little less of an excuse to not bring enough life into their balance, right? Because they're home. They're with their kids now much more often. So relish this opportunity, right? Build relationships that you couldn't build before. Get closer with your son or your daughter, right? Now is the time to do it, right? So there's lots of opportunities to be seized if you look for them and take advantage of them.
Very good. Well, to kind of sum up then for today, we learned that, one, you have to take care of yourself. You have to set the right tone for those that are following you and joining you on this journey. You must stay connected, keep checking in, have weekly, if not daily check-ins so that people feel a part of the process. Create team support and engagement. So be there and listen. And what we also learned is respond, because people are looking for that full circle action there. Communicate clearly and consistently. And sometimes you have to over communicate again and again. Adapt your approach. So we're learning as we go here. So you need to roll with the punches and figure out what is the best way to connect and communicate and lead, and keep adapting. It's a little design thinking, if you will, of experimentation, iteration, and obviously empathy for your audience. Provide the right tools, which the tool for the day is this, and seize the opportunity. It is what we have to do right now. So make the absolute best of it that you can. And David, that is awesome. And we really appreciate you being here, but we're not going to let you go without our unannounced lightning round I did not tell you about.
Oh, no. That was not in the brochure.
Yeah, that was not in the brochure. And so with that, I've got a couple questions, and you just got to tell us what you think, and we'll see who David really is. All right, here we go. Are you an early morning or late night guy?
I'm an early morning guy.
Barbecue or sushi?
Oh, barbecue all the way.
Really? Welcome to Texas. Yeah, good. Are you TV news, newspaper, or web?
Web.
Web, okay. Dog or cat?
Dog.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn?
LinkedIn.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Avocado toast or bagel?
Oh, my daughter's avocado toast. In fact, she just made some this morning. No,
Where's
I'm
Scott
a bagel.
Anderson? This is the same answers as yesterday. We got profiles going on here.
Oh, boy.
Are you live or on demand? Do you take your content live or on demand?
Oh, no, on demand. Pretty much now, almost all the time, right?
And your COVID guilty pleasure is?
Costco vanilla ice cream premium.
Wow. And he didn't even hesitate.
No, he knew that
I don't know.
He had that to be answered somewhere in that list.
Yeah, I was looking for the moment to squeeze that in, and I just
barbecue, no, Costco ice cream.
Hey, Sam, I have an observation. I don't know if it's just within the field of psychology, but I think Dr. Paulus threw a list of 8 topics at one point as well, right?
Yeah.
How can nobody believes in the top 10 list, I guess, in the
Well, you can't remember anymore.
Yeah. I lost count.
That's so true.
And nobody pays attention past 3 anyway, so it's hard having a list.
Very good. Thanks.
Okay, David, any closing words you'd like to impart on us that we should?
Well, other than, a couple things. I appreciate, the involvement and the participation was great. I love what I do. I really, 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 really do. And moments like this, it's great to come together and share perspectives and insights, help one another out. That's what makes the world go around. So I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
we'll
David.
see you tomorrow just for a general campfire. And on Thursday, we'll have Dane Dunstan with us, who will be talking about some of the books he's written on leadership and some tactics he has around that as well. So thanks for joining. Wash your hands, stay home.